Afternoon, guys. Okay, so yes, I understand it's Monday. You should hopefully be watching these notes no later than Tuesday night. And hopefully tomorrow or the next video that we actually do, I'll have a little bit better sound quality for you guys to be able to handle. I know this mic can get a little bit obnoxious sometimes. So anyway, so today, kind of going off what we already, what we did with mean, median, and mode, now we're going to be looking at, it's called or what it basically is, it's going to be displaying data. When we do mean, median, mode, you get like a list of numbers. That's a set of numbers. Well, now we're going to figure out different ways of displaying those sets of numbers, make it a little bit more organized, a little bit better, easier to understand, and then we will be using that information to find stuff like mean, median, and mode, okay? So today the objective is going to be students will be able to use different techniques for displaying data. They will be able to correctly read and understand the data that's displayed. So I don't want you just to be able to, look at a thing and say, oh, look, there's data displayed. I want you to actually understand what that data means and how we take it off the charts and stuff like that, and also not just how we can take the information out of it, but how we can put information into those types of charts. Again, standard represent data with plots on the real number line, dot plots, histograms, and box plots. Excuse me. So there is a few more definitions for today. Important terms. You need to know frequency table, a histogram, and a stem and leaf plot. And really, when you look up the definitions of frequency table, histogram, and stem and leaf plot, they're really just going to be telling you what they are. It's not really necessarily a definition, but if I ask you what a histogram is, you should know what the difference between a histogram is and a frequency table, or a histogram and a stem and leaf plot. Okay? So, example number 1. And it looks like I have a box that needs to be deleted. So, there we go. Alright, so example number 1. The number of home runs by the Knight High School varsity team are listed below. What is a frequency table that represents the data? So it says the number of home runs, 7, 17, 14, 2, 7, 9, 5, 12, 3, 10, 4, 12, 7, and 15. And this would be by different players on the team. Okay? So when we do a frequency table, you're going to look and you want to divide the frequency table up in groups or sets. Okay? So basically you're going to be determining, based on a group, how many times an outcome comes up within that group. Alright? So there's more than one way to do a frequency table. I could just write each individual number, okay, 2, 7, 17, 14, on one column, and then in the other column I could write how many times it appears. But when you're dealing with a frequency table, it's best to put them in groups so that you only have 4 or 5 or 6 rows instead of having, right now, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Right now you have 14 numbers. Some of them show up more than once, but you might be looking at 10 to 12 rows for a frequency table. Okay? So, what we're going to do for a frequency table is, and this is what I think is probably one of the better ways to do it. Alright? We're going to count up how many numbers you have. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. There's 14 numbers. Okay? And I want to kind of see how many different ways I can, or not how many different ways, but I want to try to figure out a way that I can group numbers together using the, I want to figure out a way to group these numbers together and make the groups where I only have maybe 6 or so groups, okay? So, what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my lowest number and my highest number, okay? I'm going to find out what my range is to start, okay? So right now my range, my highest number is the number 17. My lowest number is the number 2. Okay? Now, that means my range is 15, but it's actually 16. There are 16 numbers. Okay? So the range is going to be 15, but I have 16 numbers that I actually deal with. Okay? Because I have 2 all the way to 17. So, hold on just a second here. So what we're going to do, okay, is that there are 16 possible outcomes. Okay, did I miss a number here? 7, 17, 14, 2, 7, 9, 5, 12, 3, 10, 4, 12, 7, 15. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. I think the reason why is because I'm missing some numbers in between. But basically, all right, we have the possibility of 16 different outcomes. All right. So you're going to take that, and maybe you want to divide it up by, find a number of groups that would evenly divide into that. Okay? So 5 obviously you couldn't do groups of 5 because you wouldn't have an even number. But you could, however, do groups of 4. Okay? So if I'm going to do groups of 4, that would mean I would start with the first group, which would obviously start with 2, and I'm going to do 4 numbers in 2. So 2, 3, 4, 5. So my first group would be 2 through 5. Well, if I have 5 here, I can't have 5 home runs again, so then this one would be 6 through 10. Sorry, 6 through 9. Misspoke myself there. 6 through 9. And then I would have 10 through 13. And then I would have 14 through 17. Okay? So this would give me 4 even groups. Okay? Each one has 4 numbers within that group. All right? So then, all right, so actually let me rewrite this. And I'm going to do a table. Okay? So we're going to do a table. Since I choose groups of 4, or since I have 4 groups, I'm going to do 4 rows and 2 columns. So we have, this would be number of HRs, and this is going to be how many times they show up, or we can just call it the frequency. Okay? So we had 2 through 5, we had 6 through 9, 10 through 13, and 14 through 17. So now all you're going to do for your frequency part is you're going to see how many times did these numbers show up. So I'm going to do the 2 through 5 in red. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's it. So the frequency of 2 through 5 is 4. I will do 6 through 9 in yellow. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4. So I have 4 home runs that are between 4 people who hit between 6 home runs and 9 home runs. Let's do green. 10 through 13. So I have 1, 2, 3. I have 3 that hit between 10 and 13. And let's do pink. 14 through 17. 1, 2, 3. Okay? I should have accounted for all the numbers. 4 and 4 is 8, plus 3 is 11, plus 3 is going to be 14. And I have 14 different outcomes. So this would be my frequency table. Okay? This is all there is to a frequency table. You find out, you decide how big you want to make the groups and how many groups you want to have. and then you just find out how frequently an outcome is within that group. Okay? Example number 2. It looks like I got that little double box here again. Let me move that. Okay. The data below are the numbers of hours per week a group of Mr. Stevens students spent watching television. Make a frequency table and a histogram that represent the data number of hours. Okay? So, again, we're going to take, you have 0 as the lowest number, and it looks like you have the highest number right now is going to be 22. Okay? So right now you have 22, you have 23 possible outcomes from 0 to 22 if you include all those numbers. Because remember, 22 minus 0 is 22, but if you include 0, so if you count every number between 0 to 22, that's actually 23 numbers. So 23 is prime. There's no way to divide that up into even groups. So what we can do is we can add a number or subtract a number. Well, we can't subtract a number, but we can add a number to our possible outcomes. So if we have 23 possible outcomes now, we could add one more to get 24. So what I would do then is 24, I can divide that by 3, and I can make 3 groups of 8, or I could do 4, and I could do 4 groups of 6, and that's really going to be it, okay? So let's try to make maybe a few more groups that are smaller instead of less groups that are bigger, okay? Because you could also do 2 groups of 12 as well, but I would rather do more groups and smaller groups. So we're going to do 4 groups of 6, which means you have number of hours, okay, and you have the frequency, okay, or how many students. So, make our chart, and we decided 4 groups of 6, so I'm going to make 4 rows, and I still only have the 2 columns. So my first groups, if I'm going to do 4 groups of 6, this would be 0 to 5. That's 6 numbers. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then I would do 6 to 11. Sorry, itching my nose. 12 to 17. And then I would do 18. Okay? Our last number stopped at 22, but remember, I added 1 extra on so that I could have an even number of groups and an even number in each group. So it's 18 to 23 is my last group. So now you're just going to do it again. You're going to go through and you're going to count up how many times each one shows up. So red, 0 to 5. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I have 0 to 5 shows up 6 times. Yellow, 6 to 11. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 times. Do orange. 12 to 17. You got 1, 2, 3. And last but not least, 18 to 23, you have 1, and that's all of our numbers. So here's my histogram. Or excuse me, here is my frequency table. Okay? Now, this part I expect you to do with a ruler. I do not have one on here, so I am going to cheat. I tell you never to cheat, but in this particular instance, I may cheat. So, my histogram. Because I want you to use a ruler, so these are nice and straight. Okay? Now, a histogram is a graph. Okay? And how we do this is the frequency is always going to go on the side here. Okay? On the bottom is going to be your number of hours, or in the last case would be number of home runs. All right? So you are going to do 4. Oops. Not ready to click on the right button. So you're going to do 4 sections. And it looks like, okay, so this is my end right here. Okay? So I have 1, 2, 3, I have 4 sections. They need to be evenly done because your boxes are even, obviously. And what we're going to do now is you're going to do your frequency. Okay? So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 was my highest. So, for my histogram, very simply, you are going to make a rectangle. So, 0 to 5. This one was 0 to 5, 6 to 11, 12 to 17, 18 to 23. 0 to 5, we had 6 times, so I'm going to extend this all the way up, and then I'm going to shade all of this in. Six to 11, we had 5, which is about right here. So I'm going to extend this up, and again, please use a ruler. Okay. There's 6 to 11. Orange, we're going to do, actually that should have been yellow, but now we will do orange. 12 to 17 is 3, so that is right here. I'm going to shade this in. And then last but not least, we will do yellow, is 18 to 23, and you had 1, which will look just like this. Okay? So here is our frequency table right here. This is the histogram that describes the frequency table. All right? Last example. The cost of notebooks at 7 different stores are as follows. $2.39, $2.47, $2.43, $2.21, $2.33, $2.28, $2.26. Use a stem and leaf plot to display the data. Now, with a stem and leaf plot, these are a little bit different, but yet still not all that difficult to do. So, all you do for a stem and leaf plot is, just a second, with a stem and leaf plot, okay? Stem and leaf plot is a way for us to break up digits, stuff like that, okay? So what you're going to do for a stem and leaf plot is we see that we have 2 is common in all of them. All of them are $2 and something cents, right? So for our stem and leaf plot, I need to separate it. For the first part, I'm going to put 2, because it's what it has in common. And then I noticed that these can all be broken up. So we have a 3 here, 3 here, and then I have a 4, a 4, and then I have a 2, a 2, and a 2. Okay? So I have 3 different groups here. So what we're going to do is for our groups, all right, you have 3 different groups. In each group there's some that are within them. So what we're going to do is we're going to put 2.2, we're going to put 2.3, and we're going to put 2.4. Okay? And now we're going to, so this would be $2.20, but there are several different values here that aren't just $2.21. Okay? So sorry, $2.20. So what we're going to do to organize the data is like this is $2.21. These always get put in numerical order, so you're going to put a 1. Okay? Then I would go to the next one. You got 228 and 226, so I'm going to put a 6, and I'm going to put an 8. So that means that value-wise, I have $2.21, $2.26, $2.28. So for the 3s, 2.3, I have 2.39, I have 2.33. So I would put the first one, which is a 3, the second one, which is a 9. The 2 4s, I have 247, 243, and it looks like that's it. So I would put 243 and 247. This is my stem and leaf plot. So this is what you would call the stem. Okay, these are your stems. Every one of the leaves comes from a stem. So you would start with your stems and then you would get your leaves. Okay, another example of that, let me just give you another example real quick. If I have the numbers 10, 11, 22, 31, 33, 24, and 13, and I told you to do a stem and leaf plot, all right? My stems would be the tens digit, so it would be 1, 2, 3. My leaves then would be what numbers are in the tens. So the tens, you'd have 10, so that would be a 0. You have 11, which would be a 1. You have 13, so you'd put a 3. 2s, I have 22 and 24, so I'd put a 2 and I'd put a 4. The 3s, you have 31 and you have 33. This would be a stem and leaf plot of these particular numbers. Okay? Stem and leaf plots, histograms, frequency tables, they're somewhat difficult to explain, but they're very, very, very simple to do. Okay? So this would be a stem and leaf plot for example number 3. I apologize, this video is a little bit longer, but like I said, it is because these are a little bit more difficult to explain. Hopefully you understand them pretty simply. The last thing I want to talk about real quick, you have 3 different histograms here. These histograms are examples of different types of histograms that you would see in your when you're doing histograms. And these 3 types of histograms have names. This one is what we call a uniform histogram. Okay? You can kind of notice no matter where you pick as a middle point, so even if I said, okay, right here's my middle, on the left side and on the right side, it's pretty uniform. You have one that's a little bit higher, you know, you have one that's a little bit lower, but it's pretty uniform on both sides. Okay? This one is what we're going to call a symmetric histogram. And that would be because here's my center. Well, if I look on the left side and on the right side, they're pretty even. If I was to draw a line right down the middle and fold one side onto the other, they would be pretty close to being symmetric, almost the same. Okay? The last one is what we call skewed. Okay? We find our middle, which would be roughly right there. The left side is nowhere close to being even to the right side. And it's not symmetric in any way, not even close. Okay, remember symmetric is if I fold something in half, the one half lays perfectly on the other half. So like a square, if I fold it in half, it makes a rectangle. One side lays perfectly on the other. That's what symmetric means. So the skewed one is definitely not uniform because the sides aren't even close to looking the same. And the graph itself changes a lot. Symmetric, it's not symmetric because I can't fold them over on each other. And so this is what would make it skewed. So this is just an example, or not an example, but this is just a different names for the different types of histogram graphs. Make sure you write down any questions you have. We will go over this on Wednesday as well. There will be a worksheet on it on Thursday. We'll do a group activity on Friday that will kind of cover this and mean, median, and mode. And then on Monday you will have a quiz, all right? So make sure you write down any questions you have. Also write down any steps. Come up with your own, okay? Have a great night, and we'll see you guys on Wednesday.